this life ain't fair. And I know that you're going nowhere. Well, don't blame me for what you've done, 'cause I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Well, don't you just walk away. That's when I'll say.
Well, welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast. I'm Tom Clary, and I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my co-host and constant companion, Ron Bruno. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thank you for asking.
Good. Well, we got an awesome guest today. We're going to be getting to it in a little bit. It's Ben Rocca of Rocca Development Group. He's going to talk to us a bit about getting developers together with city and county governments to facilitate getting projects off the ground and on the way. But first, we're going to go hit the news with Ron. You got something good for us this week?
I do, as of always. So this is from Housing Wire. This is kind of fun. These are always fun. Guess what? It's about Zillow.
Oh, my favorite topic.
Yes. You can't get enough about Zillow.
You know how much I love Zillow, Ron.
Can't get enough.
I could talk about Zillow pretty much every single time, every single episode, but I don't want to.
No, definitely not. But here it is. Game changer. Zillow getting into the home selling business with instant offers, quote unquote, instant offers. That's their new product that they have.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do is if you are a home seller, you're looking to sell your home, you can go right onto Zillow's webpage, and they're testing it right now, so it's not available for everywhere. But what you do is you just go right onto their page and you submit here's my address, here's where I live, and then you hit go, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like Lending Tree. There are going to be investors that are going to compete for selling your home, right? So they're going to be giving you offers.
Like magic,
just like that.
Like out of nothing will come offers for you. It's fantastic. How could there be a problem, Ron?
I mean, it sounds amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then what? So they have. So I'm looking at this thing. So it says you have offers, and it says congratulations, you've received offers for your home at 1234 Main Street. All instant offers are valid for 5 business days and include these benefits. So they say no open houses, closing date of your choice, all cash offers, no listing prep. So these are all investors, right?
Yeah.
So there's no loan attached to this. These are all people offering all cash. So
right.
It's ABC Investor, Home Investment Group, all these things, and then they actually have a realtor, so they're going to hook into their realtor network where they'll offer a professional valuation.
Right.
So they say if you sell with Alan Peterson, and you're looking at the estimated sales price at $372, and after the 6% commission, now it's $349, right?
Right.
But you have to go through you do the open houses and all that kind of stuff.
Right. The actual process of selling your house.
That's right. So I'm dying to know your thoughts on this whole thing.
Let me tell you something. I think it'll surprise you, right? Because I have to tell you that in the real estate industry over the last week or so when this came out, agents have been losing their shit over this.
Oh, yeah.
They have completely gone bonkers because they really look at this as a huge threat. They're looking at this as the Uberification of the real estate. And when you have something as huge as Zillow, whether it should be huge, that's another argument, another podcast. Well, we've actually had that podcast before.
Yes, we have.
But if this big guy comes in and starts doing something like this, there's probably like, oh, that's big guns, and now we're really scared.
Oh, yeah. And there's like stopzillow.com.
Yeah, and they actually had like a petition.
They're sending it around all of the realtors on the internet.
And what's interesting is that there's some validity to it. I mean, look, the way that Zillow got as big as it is was not, it's that the consumers embraced it. That's number one. Whether they should have embraced it, that's another conversation. We've talked about how bad those estimates are, the estimates with a Z. That's completely different from an actual estimate because it has a Z on the front of it. But basically, but they made their money on the backs of real estate agents. Mm-hmm. Basically, real estate agents are advertising on Zillow and getting leads from Zillow. So it's kind of like, okay, why are you? If you're going to kill the golden goose who's laying the eggs for you, the people who are paying your bills. it's not maybe the greatest, move strategically. But when you look at it, and it was interesting, I was just, before I came here, I watched, there was a kind of like a webinar, not a webinar, but like an interview on Facebook Live with Jay Thompson, who is the liaison between real estate agents and Zillow. Right.
Oh, okay.
And he recognizes this. He's like looking at it going, yeah, we could totally understand why you guys would not be happy about this. But this is just a test. Like you said, it's just a test. That's their standard line. This is just a test. It's a test until it's not a test. right.
Yeah.
Until it's, across the nation.
The DVD was a test before the VCU.
right. Yeah. There was some guy in a lab someplace trying DVDs out, and eventually everybody embraced them.
Right.
The second thing is that they're only looking at this in certain circumstances, and I think that's really where that's the crux of this issue. This is only going to be good for some people in some areas. So that agents are kind of losing their stuff about it. I'm not that concerned about it, especially in where we're at in Los Angeles. It just doesn't have the impact here that it's going to have in Des Moines or something like that, or some sort of rural area where, our price point is so high that if like, let's say I want to sell my house, or let's say even better, I want to move. That's more important. I want to move and I need a month to do it, right? If I say I want my house to go for $800,000 and an investor comes in at $750,000, that's $50,000.
Yeah,
and that's the difference in the price there. That the investor's not going to get into it at normal market price. He's going to want some sort of discount. Now, if I'm in rural, Wyoming, right, and I need to move in 30 days, and there's like it's a bit difference between $200,000 and maybe $190,000. That difference is so much smaller. Maybe that convenience might be worth something to someone.
Plus, from an appraisal standpoint, if someone has a loan on the other side, there's not a lot of comps in rural Wyoming, right? So it may be harder to sell that particular home. So if someone's coming in all cash and it's $10,000 below than what you're asking, you might just grab it.
Yeah, and I think that most of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast, I would hope, they're not the folks who are just going to try to find the easy way out. They're looking to find the best way to get the most out of anything, right? So out of the deal, the transaction. And so, I think that personally, I'm not concerned because agents that provide value, which I hope that I do, and I create, I give education to my clients, they understand the value that I have in a transaction. This is the largest probably purchase or sale that they're going to make in their life. You generally don't want to do that all by yourself, especially if you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So I don't think that agents are going to just one day get up and walk away. Now, will it do something to our value? I mean, in terms of not value, but our price? Possibly, because it's competition.
Right.
So, yeah, we might have to start talking about maybe it's not 6% anymore. Maybe there's something, we got to take a little cut in order to be competitive with this. So I think that's the first thing I'm thinking is that I don't think we're going to go away because there's value to us. Like I said before, it's only going to work in specific areas of the country. And for people, and I hate to say this, who are lazy. I mean, it's really people who are lazy and who don't want to deal with agents in the first place. And by the way, agents are to blame for it as well. Because we're the people who are making people not want to call us.
Right.
Who don't want to, quote unquote, deal with the hassle of a realtor. Well, because, we've been used car salesmen for so long. We don't have any kind of integrity. So God bless them. I understand that. I completely understand it.
Yeah.
And finding someone who has value and has the knowledge to, this isn't just a transaction, it's a relationship. Those are few and far between. So yeah, I get it. So it's for lazy people and it's for people who maybe someday need to get out. I have to get out on that day. Maybe there's a foreclosure coming in 30 days. And if I sell to the investor, I may not make $20,000, but I'll get out from underneath the loan. I don't have to short sale it. Maybe it's a perfect, thing for me to do. So I totally, I would get that. I understand it. And this is the weird thing. The last point I'm making is that that basically for the agents in the short term, this is going to be good for us.
Why is that?
Now, let me tell you why. It has everything to do with the sending out basically how Zillow sends out an email to an agent one of their premier agents.
Right.
That's one of the things. That's one thing. You have to be advertising on Zillow in order to take advantage of this. But you're going to have a bite at somebody, basically. You're going to be able to, oh, this person is selling their house. I didn't know that they were selling their house. I'm going to provide them with a CMA, a comparable market analysis. I'm going to be able to possibly come in and steal this listing away from these investors. And that's, in the short term, good for agents.
Right.
So I'm not scared of this, and there's a potential where I'm looking like, well, look, if people are going to be on Zillow anyway, I might even think about going in this direction marketing wise. For the short term.
Right.
I know that they're going to eventually try to put me out of business. But if I know that, I can start making plans in the future.
Well, I mean, if you have one of 4 offers being a professional valuation, and you get a shot at someone who, okay, yeah, you know what, I want more money, and the first offer is at 334, and the other one's 327, the other one's 309. But if I roll the dice and sell it with this guy, I might get 349 for it, right? So yeah, it's worth it. I'll take the inconvenience.
I'll take a little extra time. I'll have the people walking through my house during open houses, and I won't have to, I'm going to have to deal with them tromping through and looking through my closets and stuff like that. But for $40,000 or whatever, yeah, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, so I think it adds. So I wanted to get your perspective before even commenting on it.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, just before we move on,
yeah.
and the other thing I think about it is, okay, we've talked about how the Zestimates,
right?
Zestimates are honestly the most inaccurate tool that's ever been put on the internet. It's literally they'll admit to 20-something%, right? But okay, imagine if, like, you bought a watch that was never on time. We've talked about this. Like, we've made this comparison. Imagine that if your watch was off 20% of the time. Now all of a sudden that watchmaker wants to control your schedule, right? They want to do something that's even bigger than just putting a watch on your. That's what Zillow's trying to do. They're basically trying to become your realtor.
Right.
Okay, so their tool is useless. It doesn't work, and now they want to sell your house. I mean, I hope that people would make that connection, but I can't guarantee people will, because they're so huge.
Right. Well, I mean, I think what it boils down to is, if you are a realtor and your only value is providing comps and saying this is what I can sell your home for, and you just expect your 6% commission check and you're owed that money, then you deserve to go out of business.
Absolutely.
That's really what it boils
100%.
down to it. Because if you go, I mean, from a lending standpoint, you can go anywhere online and you can get quotes, right? Any sort of mortgage calculator that's on there, there's, here's 16 different quotes. And if I had my only value was giving you a rate, then I deserve to go out of business.
It's ridiculous.
Right? So what I think this thing does, it actually starts a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So it gets somebody to go to this thing, have transparency, get a immediate answer where it's real, right? So these investors are real, they're not fake. And they're able to actually know, hey, this is what my house is worth. And then you could take that information and you could share that with an agent, and the agent can say, well, it's because of this, 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 and this. And that's when you prove your value.
Yeah.
Right? That's the real key. So I see it as a good thing. I'm not signing the petition.
I didn't sign it either.
No.
And to just see, agents, pulling their hair out and ripping their, clothes and saying, oh my God, that's the end of the world.
Right.
Look, if that's all it took in order to end your world,
right,
you weren't doing it right in the first place.
Exactly.
Oh, great. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. It's Ben Rocca. Ben is the managing principal at Rocca Development Group. He handles all aspects of the pre-construction and development process, things like due diligence, preliminary site evaluation, project scheduling, land planning, zoning, and as I said before, he also works face to face with government, as well as the government, as well as to get everybody on the page, the same page, in order to get the project moving. He's an expert in every sense of the word when it comes to getting the trains running on time, real estate wise. And I can't wait to talk to him. Ben, thank you so much for coming and being here today.
Well, thank you for hosting me, Tom.
Yeah, great. Well, so as we do with every single new person that we have on our podcast, we always say, okay, well, how the hell did you get here? Tell me a little bit about your background. Where'd you come from?
Sure. I'd be happy to. My background came from home building.
Okay,
straight out of while I was still in university. I had an internship at, back then it was Kaufman and Broad.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, today it's KB Home.
Right.
And I started doing land acquisition for them, and then that.
So you'd actually go out, find land for them, and say, hey, you guys might want to buy that.
Correct.
Got
it.
it.
Gave me some geographic parameters.
Got it.
And
Like we're looking around this area.
Exactly.
Find us something. Got it.
And then identify the zoning.
Yeah.
And what can we build here? How many homes?
Yeah.
How many DUs per acre, dwelling units per acre?
Got it.
What type? How large? What do a little bit of a market study.
Mm-hmm.
And then that transitioned into more of a forward planning, land entitlement, project management role.
So like a big picture, more of a big picture kind of thing.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. Because land acquisition is pre-acquisition before they even acquire the land.
Right. Right.
Okay. And then my role, like I said, transition, and my career really kind of took off in the entitlement, forward planning, project management.
Got it. Got it.
And I worked for a number of publics. KB Home was one of them. I worked for Lennar. I worked for Richmond American Homes. And this is all throughout California, by the way. All
Right.
throughout Southern California. A little bit in the Bay Area.
Right.
Pre 9/11.
Okay.
KB back then.
Got it.
And now keep in mind, every time there was a little recession, a little blip.
Yeah.
I sometimes would get caught up in those layoffs.
Got it.
Many people
Sure.
would.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Which is actually one of the reasons why I'm out on my own now.
Yeah. Right. Because you're on your own. You can't fire yourself. If you do, you got other issues.
Exactly. And I also want to diversify away from just doing single family my entire career.
Right. Sure.
Now I'm doing multifamily, mixed use,
Right.
dabbling into a little bit of retail, office space. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So tell us a little bit about the process in terms of, coming into the big picture, not necessarily because that's really what you're doing now, right? Is more big picture kind of stuff, correct?
Yes, big picture and small picture.
Right. When do you get involved in the whole process? Like when do we say, hey, let's call Ben up?
Well, that's a great question. So if a landowner or a contractor or a developer has a piece of property, right?
Right.
And they need to really assess what is the highest and best use of my property.
Right.
They would bring me on.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would conduct a very comprehensive due diligence analysis.
Go into a little bit about like some of the things that are covered under due diligence.
Absolutely. So
because I see, that's something that, and I mean, I know, but
Right.
like people see out on those contracts, like you need to do your due diligence. What does that really mean?
Okay. So what that means is trying to assess reviewing title, figure out if there are any encumbrances. I mean,
we just had Marisa and Tony Toronto from Chicago Title on and to kind of explain the whole title process.
Perfect.
And explain, how you're basically saying who really owns this and can they sell it to me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Aside from title, it's going down to the city, pulling records.
Right.
Are there any violations that are on this property that I need to cure?
Right.
Are there any underlying in the city of LA, I'm going to just use city of LA as an example because that's kind of my bread and butter.
Yeah.
What they call Q conditions. And those are restrictions that are recorded on a covenant and agreement attached to A, that property, or B, that entire community plan is affected by this particular Q condition. Can be height, can be parking, open space.
Right. It's basically the limits of what you can do there, correct?
Correct. Or what you cannot
Or what you cannot do. Correct.
Okay. So that's part of my feasibility analysis. Is
Okay.
knowing all these constraints.
Right.
What can we do to perhaps propose a zoning administrative adjustment and get the desired use?
Yeah.
And get the highest density, optimizing the highest value for that
Right.
land.
Exactly.
And how long would it take? And here's the entitlement strategy.
Got it.
Here's how much it would cost. Here's who you need to hire.
Mm-hmm.
And I would come up with those concept studies
Yeah.
and the likelihood of that being approved, having had conversations with certain staff members at the city,
Right.
or at the council's office.
Do you does it even get into the dealing with the architect or with basically the people who are actually planning the actual buildings?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always helpful to come up with a rendering,
Right.
even
Right.
if it's a very conceptual sketch,
Yeah.
just to show the staff, here's what we're thinking of developing here.
Right.
And getting their read as to you could do that by right, or you may have some pushback from the neighbors.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that a little bit later when we talk about. I really want to get into like the Warner Center plan. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and
I am somewhat.
And different larger plans like that, like the pushback that you get from neighborhoods and all that. But before we go there, I wanted to talk about. So since you've been doing this, how have you seen kind of the industry change over time? Like, what do you like? How do you see? Is it any different than when you started back with KB?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like in what way?
In several ways. I would say it's in the late 90s and up until I'd say the kind of great market downturn.
Yeah.
It's been focused on suburban development.
Yeah.
The middle class dink, right? Double income, no kids.
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't mind buying a house in a master plan community subdivision, Valencia,
right,
and commute into the city for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It wouldn't faze them the least.
Right. Absolutely.
Because that was their value.
I know I did. I used to live in Valencia, and I used to drive to Venice, for God's sake, every single day.
All
so,
right.
yeah, absolutely.
You and maybe a million behind you.
100%. But that's not so much the case anymore, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, it's actually flipped.
Yeah.
And not to say that there's not still a market for that.
Sure.
But I'd say it's shrunk. And now with the kind of influx of the millennial generation.
Right.
They're getting, well, first of all, they're not buying as early as the Gen Xers.
Right.
Or boomers.
Right.
They're deferring that.
Right.
Marrying later. So they're renting a lot more, but they prefer to live in the city.
And by the way, and let me just interject here while we're there with the millennials. And I was thinking about this last week, that we've had millennial guests on and people talking about, what is their, and originally my idea with them was that they had been putting it off because of almost a fear of what they had seen happen. Like, I don't want to be a homeowner because look what happened during the crisis, the bubble burst. I saw my friends, carrying out their belongings in, cardboard boxes. I don't need that hassle. And I think that there's still an element of that. But I think also in talking to the millennials that we've had on, and it's interesting that they also have like other plans. Like they're actually got another plan going on. They want to build something else first before they move on to buying a house. And I understand that. And that's interesting. But what I've been thinking about very recently is with millennials, I'm very concerned that they're going to miss the boat. They're going to ride the wood, and they're going to be on the sidelines, and they're going to miss their opportunity, and it's going to be way too hard for them to get into the market later on. And it's literally like, it's almost like someone waiting too long to have kids. You know what I mean? At some point you cross through a threshold and that boat sailed.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I'm very concerned that we're moving into a market of haves and have-nots.
Okay.
Where there's people who own property and there's people who don't. And so I'm very concerned about the millennials. I think that they're going to start having to, if they're going to do it, they're going to have to start widening the net and thinking about Valencia and thinking about Santa Clarita and thinking about those kind of things, or else they're just not going to be able to do it. What is your opinion about that?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think there is some validity to your point.
Yeah.
However, there is no debating the fact that there's a huge shortage of housing here in LA.
Absolutely.
In fact, Mayor Garcetti has a plan, or goal, I should say, to hit 100,000 new residential units by 2021.
Wow.
And
Good luck with that.
Well, exactly. And every year, we're about 50,000 in the deficit.
Right.
But that's there's constraint in supply.
Right.
Or in land to develop.
And especially here in those metropolitan areas that all the millennials want to be around.
Right. And then let's not forget about the NIMBYs that make it much more difficult to get projects entitled and approved.
We'll go ahead and say not in my
backyard. But now there's a movement for YIMBY. Yes, in my backyard. That's the whole millennial generation we were just talking about.
Right.
And then there's just all this new affordable housing ordinances that are being imposed. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the JJJ measure that was passed last November.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but why don't you go I do remember. It was about different types of restrictions on building, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And just a couple bullet points on that. It's really 10 units or greater to do a zone change or general plan amendment will not be allowed until all 32 plans in the city of Los Angeles have their community plans updated.
Oh,
which
okay.
would take 10 years. And the city of LA is...
Because they move so fast.
Right. And they're expediting that, and they're planning to do that in about 6.5 years.
Wow. Yeah. No.
And then there's another component to JJJ in that they require prevailing wage for their labor.
Right.
Now, for type 1 construction, that is not a big deal, but for the kind of the smaller, medium-sized developers doing the type 5 wood frame construction.
Yeah, right.
There's very, very few new projects coming in that are not by right.
Yeah.
Because of that JJJ measure.
So, is that? I mean, do you think that that's like when you think about the big boys like Lennar and KB and all that? Is that kind of what's keeping them from coming into Los Angeles, or is that like that kind of those restrictions, and it makes so much more difficulty for them?
Believe it or not, they are present.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, they are present here. So KB had a project in Van Nuys, Hazeltine, and Sherman Way. It was like 140 units. So it was a small
Okay,
lot
I know that
subdivision.
area. Yeah.
When I was at Richmond American, I built a 64-unit small lot on Sherman Way and Kester, between Kester and Van Nuys.
Sure.
And that was with Richmond American. These are all public home builders.
Yeah. I literally went to school on Kester and Sherman Way. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there was a church.
That's where I went. I was in a private school right there across the street.
There was a Red Cross. So the Red Cross is no longer there. Now it's a Richmond American.
Very interesting. There you go. All right.
Community, yeah.
There you go.
D.R.
A
Horton.
little common ground there. We're separated by 20 or 30 years, but common ground.
D.R. Horton is another public builder. They're fairly active in L.A.
Okay.
Again, infill, small lots, predominantly single-family detached. But for the most part, when you think public builder, you think of these master plan subdivisions in the Inland Empire, Orange County.
Yeah.
Because that's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Let's face it, that's their bread and butter. So here in L.A., they're competing with all the other private boutique home builder developer guys, contractors.
Right. You know, it's interesting. We had one of our guests recently was Zach King, who handles a lot of vacant land. And he was talking about how you're not seeing a lot of new developments for sale because there's a lot of, especially condos, because there's issues with liability in the HOAs. Like getting the insurance is hell. And do you see that that's a problem?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's creating some of the problem, basically.
Exactly. Anytime you go attached product, it's an insurance nightmare.
Right.
Really. I mean, there's just a lot of frivolous lawsuits, and which is reason to be afraid of building those projects in the first place, especially if you have a choice.
Yeah.
I think they'd much rather do apartments.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he was saying, too. It's easier for them.
Easier, quicker to market.
Yeah. Definitely a market for it because people are not wanting to necessarily buy, and although rent's going through the roof, but
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I know that there's a lot of housing coming into the Warner Center, and I have a little bit of a vested interest there because I live in Woodland Hills. So it's fascinating and I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say about this because and as a general, not even Warner Center specifically. Being in the Woodland Hills area, and I'm a little bit south of Ventura Boulevard, and already people are just pooping their pants talking about, the traffic that's going to come through here. Oh my God, they're going to build a stadium here. And but I'm like in the back, I'm in the corner of these meetings and like going, my house is going to go up in value. I'm fine. I don't know what's going on with them. What happens to those why don't you explain some of your experience in dealing with some of that neighborhood craziness that goes on?
Absolutely. So it's fairly common for, these residents that have lived in their neighborhoods for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, right.
And it's always the same issues. Yeah. It's traffic, it's noise, it's privacy.
Right.
Oh my gosh, these greedy developers, why do they have to build here? Can we just be left alone with our orchard and our oak trees and just, what do we ever do to them?
Yeah, exactly.
I like my peace and quiet with Yeah, right. San Fernando Valley, seventh
Yeah.
largest city in the United States, if it were its own city.
Yeah, right. And then, it's so funny. I used to live right next to the Van Nuys Airport. And I remember, oh my God, we got to shut that airport down. We got to shut it down because of the noise and all that. But I'm always like, when I think about like the value that the airport brought to that town, it's people are so short-sighted. All they think about is their own pain right in the moment instead of thinking about, well, what value does it bring? Because if you shut down that airport, you're going to be losing all sorts of jobs. You're going to be, people don't look big picture.
Side note, did you know that Van Nuys is the busiest municipal airport in the country?
Well, I do know that. And for a time, it was the second busiest airport after O'Hare Airport. God damn it. Chicago again.
Hell, Chicago always comes back.
What do we got to do? Go ahead, do it. Let's get it over with.
Well, if you want, you can call my ringtone if you want.
Oh, I don't want to call you. I just thought we were going to hear Go Cubs again. And I was
Go Cubs, go.
Oh,
there
son
you
of
go.
a bitch.
There you go.
But no, yeah, it was, it's also because my dad was built planes. So I was very kind of plane centric.
Got it.
Yeah. But tell me more about the kind of chaos that goes on with the neighborhoods and dealing with them.
So surprisingly enough, here in Los Angeles, depending on the council district, they tend to have a lot of influence.
Really?
Absolutely. And certain council members will, if they don't have full support from the neighborhood council,
Won't even think about
they
it?
won't even approve your project.
Wow.
And they're not considered a judicial body. They're a quasi-judicial body.
Right.
And you...
Are we talking about the neighborhood councils?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So every community plan has its own... So Woodland Hills has a Warner Center.
Yeah, right.
Woodland Hills. There's West Hills Neighborhood Council.
Yeah.
So all these little kind of...
Enclaves
have their own neighborhood councils. Absolutely. Right. And some are more vocal than others.
Sure. Absolutely.
Some are...
And what's interesting is, and I just kind of know this because I know someone who is in the Canoga Park, they're sometimes extremely vocal about the one in Woodland Hills. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's not only not in my backyard, but you're going to make a choice that's going to affect my neighborhood. Right. And so it's not even in your neighborhood and I'm throwing a fit.
So when I've been in-house to the builders, my role was to do whatever it takes to get the project approved.
Sure.
So you almost have to get very political in the sense of you pitch the project so that there's several benefits to the community.
Got it.
Hey, we're going to build a park. Hey, we're contributing to the local schools. We are going to donate to the YMCA down the street there, a little fund. We're planting some trees. We're going to remove 10 trees, but we're replacing at a 4-to-1 mitigation.
Right.
So you give it the sense that they're actually making out okay.
Yeah.
And you also compromise with them on the architecture,
right.
Let them feel like they're having some input in your design, not the density, which they try to, it's too many homes. Well, so it's
like a horse trade.
It's a horse trade. It's absolutely, it's a horse trade. Give and take.
And it's hysterical because, when you mentioned this stuff, I'm sort of laughing because I see these kind of community centers get built. Like, we're going to build a community center. And then you don't see a soul in it. Nobody's using this community center that, was the breaking point. Like, if we don't have a community center, then nobody ever really, it's just so funny.
Right.
So do you know anything specifically about the Warner Center plan, or is it?
Well, I do know that it's they had a whole specific plan.
Right. It's like the 2035.
2035. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like a $2.5 billion project.
I'm excited. I mean, I hate saying this, but I'm like literally excited about
6 million square feet.
That's insanity.
I mean, they're talking live, work, play.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the sports complex doesn't even get built.
That's the stadium that they're thinking about building. Yeah.
But talk about all this office, retail, commercial, restaurants, just...
It boggles my mind because I've looked at that, I don't know if you've driven by it or whatever, the Promenade Mall, right? Mm-hmm. Which used to be like the Shishi Mall here in the San Fernando Valley. I mean, literally.
I grew up here.
Yeah, so right?
Oh, I know.
That used to be like the one where I can't shop there because the prices there are way too high, right? Well, now it's just a husk of a mall that's like there's not a single, like maybe one or two things in it, and then a movie theater that's going to shut down anyway. And so, what do you want to be there? I mean, seriously, do you want it just to be some sort of abandoned mall? Of course, it makes only sense that you're going to do something with it and make use of it.
Exactly. And what the communities and neighbors have to understand is that this is going to produce a lot of economic benefits.
Yeah.
For Warner Center.
A lot of jobs.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking 12,000 full and part-time jobs. We're talking generally, this is during construction, by the way.
Right.
Nearly $2 billion in total economic output.
Yeah.
And then at full completion in 2033 is what they're estimating.
Yeah.
We're talking more than 8,000 full and part-time jobs and an estimated $1.6 billion in just economic output from all the business and industrial activity that's going to be there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that yes, there will be the bad that comes with the good. There will be more traffic. Absolutely. That makes only sense.
Well, keep in mind, though, that they actually incorporated a lot of feedback from the community during the design stages of this this master behemoth of a project.
Right.
We're talking transit-oriented design development.
Yeah.
Walkable, sustainable. There's going to be medians and pathways interconnecting throughout the entire development.
Right.
Straight to the hub of the orange line is right there.
Yeah.
So it's all going to be tied together. They're going to actually incentivize people to get out of their cars and walk and bike more.
Absolutely.
So if anything, it may even be a net zero on the traffic.
Right. And and you take the train quite a bit. I mean, now because you have that access.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just hop on the Gold Line in Arcadia and then take that right to the office, which is a block away.
I mean, I wish I could do that.
It's great.
Unfortunately, I can't really take people on home tours on the train. But
right. And going back to the topic of millennials.
Yeah. Right.
Right. They're actually downsizing to like one car per couple.
Right. Right.
So they're taking more public transportation.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
everyone's doing a lot of ride sharing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like everybody I know is doing
well, because the traffic sucks, and if you can get in the carpool lane, absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Karen and I, we have one car, and she works from home, and I'll take the Gold Line, or she'll drop me off, and if she needs the car. So
I really feel like there's multiple developers here in this project, and the city have thought this through.
Right. And you're just kind of get this reactionary thing from the neighbors that is kind of like, it's different, I don't like it, kind of thing. And it's like, well, hold on. You'll probably go to the restaurants. You might go to the park.
The same naysayers are probably at the Village right now having coffee. The ones who shot down and poo-pooed that project.
Right, exactly. Don't you dare shop at that Costco. If you hate that project so much, I better not see your face around,
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. The 24-hour fitness. Okay, well, cool. So can you just take me a little bit, what is it like to kind of interface with government to like basically try to, to influence without, there are of course limitations that you have on that.
Right.
And how does that work? Like,
it's definitely not a science, it's more of an art.
Yeah.
And it's all relationship driven.
Right.
Okay. So, how did Caruso and many others like him become so successful here in the city of Los Angeles? I mean, you start at the lower echelons of the totem pole and build those relationships over time. And, someone like me, I'm heavily involved politically because I serve on the board for the Building Industry Association, LA chapter. And I'm in these meetings with the heads of every single department at the city, from Bureau of Engineering to building safety and planning. We're talking like 1 degree removed from the mayor of Los Angeles. And having these influence on the upcoming ordinances that they're looking to, they're getting feedback straight from the building community. That's what they're looking for, right? But when you're processing a project, right?
Yeah.
They have guidelines.
Yeah.
So long as you stay within their box of their guidelines, but you want to, say, do a zone change or a variance.
I was about to ask about that, actually. Yeah.
As long as you're consistent and complying with the,
general feel of that,
your municipal ordinance, and you're not breaking any sort of rules, or then they can A, approve it, or B, deny it. And then, or sometimes they'll approve it, then you'll have appeals, which is actually quite common.
Really?
Yeah, and the appeals come from these same neighborhood
people.
Right. Yeah. It takes tenacity, a lot of patience, but a lot of backdoor kind of relationship and getting good with the staff members. And I'll be honest. There's been some projects that have a lot of hair on them, and they take several months, if not years, actually.
Right.
The larger projects could take several years.
So let's say I'm just a Joe Blow investor. And I'm not like, I'm not like a huge, KB or Lennar or anything like that. I'm just a guy who has maybe some property that is zoned for residential, but I'd love to kind of make a, triplex, fourplex or something there. Yeah. How difficult is it to get a variance? Is it impossible? It's
not impossible.
No.
So long as you have the justification for it. And you
explain the justification. Like, what do you like in terms of?
Well, you need to prepare what they call findings. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand your current zoning. What does it allow for?
Right.
And you have to figure out, okay, what am I looking to do?
Yeah.
And can I do that within my existing zoning, or if not, this variance? Okay. So then you have to demonstrate, why do you need this variance?
Right.
What are you going to do with it? Are you going to who are you impacting?
Right. Yeah. Who's gonna be screaming?
Exactly.
Got it.
And oftentimes nobody's getting impacted, really.
Right. They're just saying they are, but
right.
Yes.
And these variances get proved all day long.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
They take a while.
How long does it usually take? For something I was just talking about, that as an example.
I mean, you're looking at 8-9 months.
Oh, that's actually a lot less than I expected.
Yeah.
Because I know people would throw up their hands, about that.
But that's because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why people like me are in business, because we understand the process. We know through the... Again, at the end of the day, it's called a discretionary approval, because you're going before a hearing officer who will ultimately hear your case and can, in theory, deny it.
Yeah.
A zone change would take longer.
Sure.
A zone change would take upwards of a year to 14 months.
Because you're permanently changing in for the area, right? Or
correct.
Yeah. So, I can totally understand that.
A subdivision, when you're taking a parcel of land or an assemblage of 3 or 4 contiguous parcels, and then you want to subdivide it into 22 small lots.
Yeah.
That would take upwards of a year and a half.
Got it. Now let's say that I found some miraculously found some vacant land in the middle of the San Fernando Valley. Mm-hmm. What's your advice in terms of like a timeline for building my own home, or like in terms of, okay, then you probably need to start doing this, then you need to do that, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to bring an architect in early on in the process. You want to bring in, you don't need a GC early on, but architect for sure.
General contractor.
Yeah.
Just so everybody
General
knows.
Contractor. Right. Thanks.
That's just industry parlance. We have to, shorten things up whenever we can.
Absolutely.
So, GCs.
And then you want to bring in, an engineer perhaps.
Right.
To get a survey. You want to survey your property.
Sure.
Figure out exactly how many square feet your property is.
Right.
And then you get someone like me on board to figure out what is the highest and best use. How big of a home can I build here?
Right.
And how much open space and floor area ratio, abbreviated as FAR.
Mm-hmm.
And just so your architect actually should have all this in his back pocket.
Right.
So that would be the first step, really, is get kind of a idea of what you're looking to do with your property.
Right.
Take those concept plans down to the city and figure out.
Yeah.
But that's what the steps would be.
Without any kind of craziness going on, from dirt to move in, how long do you think that process is? I mean, judging on the average home,
On the average home?
Yes.
I'd say about a year, 14 months.
Yeah.
I mean, and
that's getting all the government stuff in line, getting the permits, getting the thing.
Now again, if you're building a spec home in Calabasas, right?
Yeah, right. That's
you're talking.
Yeah, that's a ginormous thing, or things like Malibu, where you're dealing with the coastal commission and things like that. But,
exactly.
Right.
And then you could do what Hadid does, is he just builds it and and whatever the consequences are, the chips fall where they may.
That's the dude that's the
he's being sued. He has the Bel Air
Yeah,
mansion.
that
Has
guy.
I don't know, not
Let
wives,
them sue me, baby.
daughters.
I have no idea what he
daughters
sounds
that
like,
are
but that was just
models.
my imitation.
No, that was pretty good.
Thank you
guess.
very much.
Yeah.
But so, are there any kind of advantages to getting it newly constructed compared? And by the way, do you work with just general like single family homes, or are you just more commercial?
More on the commercial. Well, when I say commercial, I mean I can be referring to as residential too.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I meant more of like the bigger projects.
Correct.
Like more than 10 units or whatever.
That's correct.
Got it.
I don't typically get involved on the single family spec homes. That's a contractor would get involved. Really, and I'm not a licensed contractor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I focus my career really on development.
Right. So, are there any cities that are harder to work with than others?
Yes.
The answer is yeah. I know that, but yes.
Yeah. So some of the smaller cities can be hit or miss. For example, Simi Valley, Moore Park, both Ventura County.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Extremely difficult.
Really? I didn't know that.
Insanely difficult. Just about every single builder in the city of Moore Park has tabooed that city.
Really?
Oh, because it's corrupt from the city manager all the way down.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And I have firsthand experience having built a project in the city of Moore Park.
Can you go into detail about corrupt?
Not really.
And not wake up with a horse's head in your bed.
Basically.
Yeah, that's wild. I would never. I mean, they seem like these kind of like suburbs. Very
Right.
kind of
Right. So I would take City of LA any day.
Really
All day long.
Wow. And I've always heard that Malibu is crazy, and I would assume
Malibu's
Santa
crazy.
Monica is probably pretty
Absolutely.
insane.
The more affluent cities, the rule
Sure.
of thumb, the more difficult. City of Calabasas, City of Thousand Oaks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because there's kind of just on the edges of Los Angeles or Ventura County.
Right.
Not really.
not to
what
mention-
you would expect. I would expect the big red tape bureaucracy being here in LA.
Yes.
Wow. But yes, that's true. But yeah.
Yeah, because the smaller, more affluent cities, think about it, their constituents are these folks who are earning minimum $500,000 a year, right? And tend to be more vocal.
Yeah.
That huge development city of Calabasas, Measure S, also got denied last year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, what about Pasadena?
I don't know a lot about Pasadena. Even though I used to live there, I don't
Right.
know a lot
Interesting.
about politically how that city is.
I'm just heard if you're making any changes, it's not easy getting it across with the city
I've actually
council.
heard that as well too. There's like certain kind of
But if you go to
hoops you have to jump
Arcadia,
through.
which is where I live, it's a little easier.
Well, and what's interesting was I was just driving through Arcadia about last weekend, like over Memorial weekend. Oh my God, I couldn't believe all the stuff I was seeing being built out there. Crazy being built.
Insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you skip over Arcadia. Like it's an anomaly.
Yeah. Interesting. So, other than, of course, giving you a call, which is, of course, what everybody should do. I mean, I talk to people who are, like, I want to be an investor, or I want to do these, I want to develop things. What are, like, any kind of recommendations you'd have for anyone who wants to start developing their own stuff, their own projects, and, like, what would be...
To learn the business or to...
A little bit of both. To actually get the project started. Let's say that. Like the actual, let's just say they've got the resources, they're ready to go, but now they've got to deal with, now I've got to deal with a government.
I would say they need to form strategic partnerships with, a couple different architects and engineers.
Got it.
And
Does it helpful to have like those relationships with people who've built there before?
Oh, absolutely.
So they can they know the hoops. Yeah,
that's a given. That's
okay,
absolutely
got it.
given.
Got it.
Yeah, I would.
Don't bring in somebody from Marina Del Rey to start building in Moore Park.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then just you really learn by doing. To be honest with you, that's
Right.
how I learned.
It's true.
It's just learn by doing, and
You got to break stuff. You got to break it sometimes. It's just reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned before, it's all relationship driven. So you got to know who the players are, and how this 800-pound gorilla that we call City of LA operates.
Right.
What are the departments? LADWP, LA Department of Water and Power, it is technically part of the City of LA,
Yeah, but not.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. There's just so many facets to this local government.
Yeah.
But when you find someone who understands the anomalies and where you got to go to get the answers and the process and the flow chart,
It makes things a lot easier.
100%.
Ron, you had something?
Yeah, so I've got a question when it comes to let's say you have a young couple and they're dead set on I want to buy a brand new home, right? And I want to buy it in the Inland Empire or Orange County, one of those big developments that's being there. So what are the the pros and the cons buying a brand new constructed home that that is now dirt, right? And in 12 months it'll be a home. So what are the pros and what are the expectations of what people think about going into a transaction like that?
Oh, that's a great question, Ron. I think the distinct advantages to buying new construction over pre-owned, especially in those type of markets that you described, would be they get to have a lot more choice, selection, where within the community would they like their home to be facing east, west? What type of architectural elevation style they want? Spanish, Mission, Tuscan, Craftsman. There's a lot more choice. Price-wise, it's pretty comparable. There's actually a lot more. I personally believe there's more value in new construction because it does come with a 10-year warranty. So any type of construction defects, the builder by law has to provide a warranty. They get to on the inside of the home select everything customizable that they want, from flooring to finishes to you name it.
Like
really.
building a Tesla.
Pretty much,
sort of,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Which you don't find in. Sure, they could do a rehab on a fixer, but they're buying a fixer, right? They're buying an older home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here they're buying brand new construction that it meets code. It's more green. Everything like meets the latest code. Which, by the way, what we call Title 24 is the energy standards. Every couple of years, they're constantly getting more and more closer to net zero. So they have the confidence that they're buying a home like the latest iPhone. They're getting the latest set of construction standards. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but being an early adopter has its own problems too. Correct?
expand on that. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, even when you're talking about things like an iPhone, and by the way, I am by no means against buying a new home at all. I think that's definitely, some people, that's what they want. Some people want to walk in and like feel like they're leaving this is a completely clean house,
Sure.
But it's like, let's say that there's a development that isn't so traffic friendly, or it's not. You have to travel. There's something about a certain development that has been lived in that you kind of understand that it has. People live there and they're fine with it. Mm-hmm. I guess is really what I'm kind of trying to say. And sometimes, yes, there are, you have your warranties on it, but sometimes there's like a global thing that happens to, like, there was some, I want to say it was Pulte Homes. I don't want to, please don't quote me on this, mm-hmm. but had like class action suits because all sorts of things were, they had, fiber, something in the walls,
right?
That was, making people sick. So what I mean.
It happens. It's like Ford or Chevy having recalls. Right?
Absolutely,
agreed.
Yes.
It happens.
Right.
Is it common? I don't think it's that common.
I mean, iPhones blew up every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or the Samsungs. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah,
it happens. Yeah. And for those folks who prefer to live in the more established, mature neighborhoods, then that's more suited.
Well, that's the other thing. Is also if you're in an area that there's nothing around, like you have to travel 3 miles to a coffee place now trust me, Starbucks will get to you. Because they always do.
Right.
But, I mean, that's just one of those things that happens.
Right.
Now, on the timing of that, so let's say you go to a place, you fall in love with it, and you decide, okay, I'm going to have all these great fixtures. Mm-hmm. Should you go in early? Like, are you putting down a deposit? Like, what does it look like in terms of the actual transaction itself?
Correct. Typically,
So the sale element of it.
typically you put up an initial deposit, right? It's called $5,000, refundable up to a certain point, because there will be a point that your deposit will become non-refundable during construction, or if you don't get approved. But the financing is virtually the same as you were buying a pre-owned, resale home.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real difference there. If you qualify FHA, great, get an FHA loan. But it is best to get in early. You have more choice. Again,
Right, because the slots haven't been filled yet.
Correct.
So you're not opening escrow or anything at the very beginning. You're just putting a deposit down, and you're basically signing a letter of intent. And there's a date that says you have to commit or you're out.
Right.
And once the project is completed, that's usually when you go into escrow, right?
Correct.
That's
And the
when
buyers
escrow
typically
period-
represent themselves, by the way. They don't need to have... In fact, it's probably often recommended to not pay an agent because the builder provides...
We don't recommend that, Ben. I'm not saying you can't, but I don't
But
recommend
a realtor
it.
could, right? A
But you
realtor
do
could
always-
sell X number of units, right? And they could be the representative on behalf of the builder,
And
right?
correct. And
Generally speaking, they're going to try to double end the deal. They're basically, their agents are going to be there sitting in the model home, probably, right?
and oftentimes they are employees to the builder.
Correct. So, as with any kind of dual agency, you want to make sure that your interests are being taken care of. But
And also-
it's not that you're not represented. It's
Correct.
Right.
And also depends if it's a buyer or seller's market.
Of course.
And which part of the cycle you're in, right?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes if you're in a down market,
Right.
the builder wants to do these broker co-ops.
Yeah. Absolutely. They'll want agents to bring people in. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, from a lending perspective, everyone's thinking rates are going to go higher, right? I mean, you could actually, I looked it up, right? Ben and I, we had a conversation before. We could do 12-month locks, right? So we
Yeah.
could actually lock it a year in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So in terms of like, if you're putting in your I'm going to buy this house kind of thing. So that's what it is like you can lock.
You
for
do an
12 months.
extended lock, so
Oh,
you pay
interesting.
for it. So there's a couple points you pay for
That
it. Not crazy amounts, but
Okay.
you just pay extra.
Well, that makes sense too,
And-
though.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I
Now,
mean, it can,
especially if we're thinking about 2 interest rate hikes in the next.
right. Exactly.
so, yeah.
Yeah. So you could lock yourself in, and if rates were all of a sudden to come down, there's actual ways that you could actually
Break it.
buy down the rate, right? So there's ways on how you can,
Interesting.
take advantage of that.
And the build cycle, Ron, I don't know, I think you asked this question earlier, is approximately about 6 months.
Oh, okay.
And that's fairly typical for a public builder. Perhaps the private builders, it depends on the product. That's for a single family home.
Mm-hmm.
For building a townhome, more or less the same.
Okay.
But yeah, you always just want to figure about 6 months.
Got it. Great. Well, Ben, we're going to be wrapping up here. So why don't we go ahead and do you have any kind of contact information, and how would you like people to get in touch? Who should be getting in touch with you, and how should they get in touch with you?
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. My email address, because my website hasn't been launched formally yet.
Okay.
We're going through a rebranding.
Okay, great.
Is Rocca Development Group, and I'll spell it. It's ROCCA Development Group @gmail.com.
Okay, that's like a temporary one.
Correct.
Okay, great. Do you know what what's going to be in the future? So in case people download it, because generally speaking with podcasts, they can download it 4 years from now. So do you know what it is yet? Or
Don't
no?
know what it is yet.
Okay, well for right now, definitely do that. But if you need to get in contact with them, definitely get in touch with me, and I can definitely forward your information along if that's no longer the.
Appreciate it.
Now, but who should be calling you? Who are the people that should be?
Real estate investors
Got
who
it.
are looking to add value to their portfolio, to their projects.
Great.
Developers, builders, and to some extent, even engineers.
Got it. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming. Really, some
Thank you,
really
Tom.
great info.
Thank you, Ron.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Great. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate or you're looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out. So please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Don't be shy. Come on, guys, give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all three of those is @ClarifiedRealty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comment section on our page. Together, we are stronger. So if you have any questions or ways that we can make this podcast even better than it is, please definitely let us know. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. Please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. They rock so freaking hard, you can only listen to them in land that's zoned F yeah. And just a little disclaimer, I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate. My license number is 01715353. Ron's is?
Guaranteed rate, NMLS 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. Well, that's about it. Ron, you good?
F yeah.
Oh, F yeah, you are. Thanks for coming, everybody. And remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
What you gonna